Harry Potter addict is first, then Tilly, then Half-Blood Collector, then Vampira, and then Robert. Hey, I'm stronger than Harry Potter because I got scarred twice. 2 scars. More mighty than Harry Potter. I think 4 sets of my parents died. I fought Voldemort twice. Got scarred twice. Hello, Liz the Wiz. Lois, yeah, very angry eyebrows. Super Potter. Super Potter, yeah. Thanks, Dan Spenst. They look like insect antennae. Antenna. How can I not say that word? This music is fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna try some different chill background music. See if that's different today. Welcome to Conk's Corner with John Reesley, where I read 1 hour. My name is actually John Voth, where I read 1 hour of Harry Potter every single day to distract you, to have some fun, and to get through these books because I've never read them. I've seen 2 or 3 of the movies. Don't remember any of them from my childhood or teenage years. I'm here with Mark. He's over there. I don't know if sometimes he pops in, somebody doesn't. He's my trusty Harry Potter advisor. This is Dexter. What else? What else do I want to say?
No spoilers.
No spoilers in the comments because I read them every single day. Got your conk! I read them every single day. No spoilers, no hints. Don't tell me anything about the future, even about what books you think suck. I don't want to hear anything. I leave a Q&A interaction time at the very end because I can't read this and read your comments at the same time. And I save all of these on YouTube, so if you want to catch up, go into the link in my bio, go into YouTube, catch up on all of those. Other than that, please stay home, don't go out, and also applause your healthcare workers, please. All right, welcome everybody, welcome. Okay, it's time for some J.K. Rowling Harry Potter times. Where did we leave off? We left off, they Ron and Harry flew to Hogwarts in a magical car that they stole from their parents that is actually not allowed to be magical, so it's a double whammy. They got caught by Snape, which I'll be calling Snape, but I'll surprise you sometimes. I'll just annoy people and say Snoop sometimes. I don't care. Get angry. I don't care. And they got surprised by Snape, who caught them, who brought down McGonagall and, what's his name? Dumbledore. And they gave them a very easy beating. Not really, but they got off pretty easy. All right, we're on chapter 6. Gilderoy Lockhart. Oh yes, I love this dude. He's so cheesy, I love it. Okay. Where's my cup, first of all? Oh yeah, I got my bear cup. I'm changing it up. The next day, however, Harry barely grinned once. Things started to go downhill from breakfast in the Great Hall. The 4 long house tables were laden with tureens of porridge, plates of kippers, mountains of toast, and dishes of eggs and bacon, beneath the enchanting ceiling, today a dull, cloudy gray. Harry and Ron sat down at the Gryffindor table next to Hermione, who had her copy of Voyages with Vampires. Voyages with Vampires, propped open against a milk jug. There was a slight stiffness in the way she said, moaning, which told Harry that she was still disapproving of the way they had arrived. Neville Longbottom, on the other hand, greeted them cheerfully. Neville was a round-faced and accident-prone boy with the worst memory of anyone Harry had ever met. I think that's him.
Post's due any minute. I think Gran's sending on a few things I forgot.
Harry had only just started his porridge when, sure enough, there was a rushing sound overhead, and 100 or so owls streamed in, circling the hall and dropping letters and packages into the chattering crowd. A big, lumpy parcel bounced off Neville's head, of course it did, and a second later, something large and gray fell into Hermione's jug, spraying them all with milk and feathers. "Errol," said Ron, pulling the bedraggled owl out by the feet. Errol slumped, unconscious, onto the table, his legs in the air and a damp red envelope in his beak.
Oh no,
Ron gasped. It's all right. He's still alive, said Hermione, prodding Errol gently with the tip of her finger. It's not that. It's that. Ron was pointing at the red envelope. It looked quite ordinary to Harry, but Ron and Neville were both looking at it as though they expected it to explode. What's the matter? Said Harry. She sent me a howler, said Ron faintly.
You better open it, Ron, said Neville in a timid whisper. It'll be worse if you don't. My gran sent me one once, and I ignored it, and...
He gulped.
It was horrible.
Neville! Harry looked from their petrified faces to the red envelope. What's a howler? He said. But Ron's whole attention was fixed on the letter, which had begun to smoke at the corners.
Open it, Neville urged. It'll all be over in a few minutes.
Ron stretched out a shaking hand, eased the envelope from Errol's beak, and slid it open. Neville stuffed his fingers in his ears. A split second later, Harry knew why. He thought for a moment it had exploded. A roar of sound filled the huge hall, shaking dust from the ceiling. Oh, this is his mom. Okay.
Stealing the car! I wouldn't have been surprised if they expelled you. You wait till I get hold of you. I don't suppose you stopped to think what your father and I went through when we saw it had gone.
Mrs. Weasley's yells, 100 times louder than usual, made the plates and spoons rattle on the table and echoed deafeningly on the stone walls. People throughout the hall were swiveling around to see who had received the howler, and Ron sank so low in his chair that only his crimson forehead could be seen.
Letter from Dumbledore last night. I thought your father would die of shame. We didn't bring you up to behave like this. You and Harry could both have died.
Harry had been wondering when his name was going to crop up. He tried very hard to look as though he couldn't hear the voice that was making his eardrums throb.
Absolutely disgusted. Your father's facing inquiry at work. It's entirely your fault, and if you put another toe out of line, we'll bring you straight back home.
A ringing silence fell. The red envelope, which had dropped from Ron's hand, burst into flames and curled into ashes. Harry and Ron sat stunned, as though a tidal wave had just passed over them. A few people laughed, and gradually, a babble of talk broke out again. She is pissed. Hermione closed Voyages with Vampires and looked down at the table, down at the top of Ron's head. Well, I don't know what you expected, Ron, but you... Don't tell me I deserved it, snapped Ron. Harry pushed his porridge away. His insides were burning with guilt. Mr. Weasley was facing an inquiry at work, after all Mr. and Mrs. Weasley had done for him over the summer. But he had no time to dwell on this. Professor McGonagall was moving along the Gryffindor table, handing out timetables. Harry took his and saw that they had double herbology, with the Hufflepuffs first. Harry, Ron, and Hermione left the castle together, crossed the vegetable patch, and made for the greenhouses, where the magical plants were kept. Ooh, I can't wait to see what these magical plants do. At least the Howler had done one good thing. Hermione seemed to think they had now been punished enough and was being perfectly friendly again. As they neared the greenhouses, they saw the rest of the class standing outside, waiting for Professor Sprout. All right, Professor Sprout, give some adjectives for that dude. He's popping up. I don't know who he is. Or is it that tiny guy? No, he's not the tiny guy. Okay. Harry, Ron, and Hermione had only just joined them when she came striding into view across the lawn, accompanied by Gilderoy Lockhart. Professor Sprout's arms were full of bandages, and with another twinge of guilt, Harry spotted the whomping willow in the distance, several of its branches now in slings. Are you kidding me? This tree has broken limbs like a person? Oh, broke me collarbone, it did. Car fell from the heavens and smashed right into me ribs. She's just having just throwing peppering little fun things in there.
Professor Sprout is a woman. She's jolly but an oddball, pleasant.
Plump, cheery, likes to garden. Okay. Please tell me you've gone to the grocery store with a duel. No, I haven't yet. I wish. Professor Sprout was a squat little witch who wore a patched hat over her flyaway hair. There were usually a large amount of of earth on her clothes, and her fingernails would have made Aunt Petunia faint. Gilderoy Lockhart, however, was immaculate in sweeping robes of turquoise, his golden hair shining under the perfectly positioned turquoise hat with gold rimming. "Oh, hello there," Lockhart called, beaming around at the assembled students. "Just been showing Professor Sprout the right way to Dr. Whomping Willow. But I don't want you running away with the idea that I'm better at herbology than she is. I just happen to have met several of these exotic plants on my travels."
Greenhouse 3 today, chaps, said Professor Sprout. Greenhouse 3 today, chaps,
said Professor Sprout, who was looking distinctly disgruntled. Not at all her usual cheerful self. Okay. There was a murmur of interest. They had only ever worked in Greenhouse 1 before. Greenhouse 3 housed far more interesting and dangerous plants. Professor Sprout took a large key from her belt and unlocked the door. Harry caught a whiff of damp earth and fertilizer, mingling with the heavy perfume of some giant umbrella-sized flowers dangling from the ceiling. He was about to follow Ron and Hermione inside when Lockhart's hand shot out. "Harry, I've been wanting a word. You don't mind if he's a couple of minutes late, do you, Professor Sprout?" Judging by Professor Sprout's scowl, she did mind. But Lockhart said, "That's the ticket," and closed the greenhouse door in her face. "Harry," said Lockhart, his large white teeth gleaming in sunlight as he shook his head. This dude is too much. He's like he's like some kind of caricature. It's like, "I've come to save all the women." "Are you lonely?" Okay. "Harry," said Lockhart, his large white teeth gleaming in the sunlight as he shook his head. "Harry, Harry, Harry." Completely nonplussed, Harry said nothing. "When I heard, well, of course, it was all my fault. Could have kicked myself." Harry had no idea what he was talking about. He was about to say so when Lockhart went on. "Don't know when I've been more shocked. Flying a car to Hogwarts. Well, of course, I knew at once why you'd done it. Stood out a mile. Harry, Harry, Harry." He's such a cheeseball. It was remarkable how he could show every one of these brilliant teeth even when he wasn't talking. Gave you a taste for publicity, didn't I?" said Lockhart. "Gave you the bug. You got onto the front page of the paper with me, and you couldn't wait to do it again." "Oh, no, Professor, see, Harry, Harry, Harry," said Lockhart, reaching out and grasping his shoulder. "I understand. Natural to want a bit more once you've had that first taste. And I blame myself for giving you that, because it was bound to go to your head. But see here, young man, you can't start flying cars to try and get yourself noticed. Just calm down, all right? Plenty of time for all that when you're older. Yes, I know what you're thinking. It's all right for him. He's an internationally famous wizard already. But when I was 12, I was just as much of a nobody as you are now. In fact, I'd say I was even more of a nobody. I mean, a few people have heard of you, haven't they? All that business with he who must not be named. He glanced at the lightning scar on Harry's forehead. I know. It's not quite as good as winning Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile award 5 times in a row, as I have, but it's a start, Harry. It's a start. This guy. He gave Harry a hearty wink and strode off. Strode off, yeah. Harry stood stunned for a few seconds, then remembering he was supposed to be in the greenhouse, he opened the door and slid inside. Professor Sprout was standing behind a trestle bench in the center of the greenhouse. About 20 pairs of different colored earmuffs were lying on the bench. When Harry had taken his place between Ron and Hermione, she said, "We'll be repotting mandrakes today. Now, who can tell me the properties of the mandrake?" To nobody's surprise, Hermione's hand was first in the air. Mandrake, or mandragora, is a powerful restorative, said Hermione, sounding as usual as though she had swallowed the textbook. It is used to return people who have been transfigured or cursed to their original state. Excellent. 10 points to Gryffindor, said Professor Sprout. The mandrake forms an essential part of most antidotes. It is also, however, dangerous. Who can tell me why? Hermione's hand narrowly missed Harry's glasses as it shot up again. The cry of the mandrake is fatal to anyone who hears it, she said promptly. Precisely. Take another 10 points, said Professor Sprout. Now, the mandrakes we all have here are still very young. She pointed to a row of deep trays as she spoke, and everyone shuffled forward for a better look. 100 or so tufty little plants, purplish green in color, were growing there in rows. They looked quite unremarkable to Harry, who didn't have the slightest idea what Hermione meant by the cry of the mandrake. Everyone take a pair of earmuffs, said Professor Sprout. There was a scramble as everyone tried to seize a pair that wasn't pink and fluffy. When I tell you to put them on, make sure your ears are completely covered, said Professor Sprout. When it is safe to remove them, I will give you the thumbs up. Right. Earmuffs on. Harry snapped the earmuffs over his ears. They shut out sound completely. Professor Sprout put a pink, fluffy pair over her own ears, rolled up the sleeves of her robes, grasped one of the tufty plants firmly, and pulled hard. Harry let out a gasp of surprise that no one could hear. Instead of roots, a small, muddy, and extremely ugly baby popped out of the earth. Again, rolling. She's like, 2 words, put them together. Plant, baby. Baby plant, yes. What? The leaves were growing right out of his head. Okay, he had pale green, mottled skin and was clearly bawling at the top of his lungs. Professor Sprout took a large plant pot from under the table and plunged the mandrake into it, burying him in dark, damp compost until only the tufted leaves were visible. Professor Sprout dusted off her hands, gave them all the thumbs up, and removed her own earmuffs. As our mandrakes are only seedlings, their cries won't kill yet, she said calmly. She said calmly, as though she'd just done nothing more exciting than water a begonia. However, they will knock you out for several hours. And as I'm sure none of you want to miss your first day back, make sure your earmuffs are securely in place while you work. I will attract your attention when it's time to pack up. 4 to a tray. There's a large supply of pots here. Compost in the sacks over there, and be careful of the venomous tentacula. It's teething. She gave a sharp slap to a spiky, dark red plant as she spoke, ha! Making it draw in the long feelers that had been inching sneakily over her shoulder. Harry, Ron, and Hermione were joined at their tray by a curly-haired Hufflepuff boy Harry knew by sight, but had never spoken to. Justin Finch Fetchley. Okay, some adjectives for Dustin Finch Fetchley, please. Adjectives for this dude. What do you think? Oh, you don't know him? Some rando, probably?
I don't know.
I guess he doesn't pop up much in the books. Justin Finch Fetchley, he said brightly, shaking Harry by the hand. Know who you are, of course. Famous Harry Potter. And you're Hermione Granger. Always topping everything. Hermione beamed as she had her hand shaken too. And Ron Weasley. Wasn't that your flying car? Ron didn't smile. The Howler was obviously still in his mind, not a major character, Keener. That Lockhart's something, isn't he? Said Justin happily, as they began filling their plant pots with dragon-dung compost. Awfully brave chap. Have you read his books? I'd have died of fear if I'd been cornered in a telephone box by a werewolf, but he stayed cool, and zap! Just fantastic! My name was down for Eton, you know. I can't tell you how glad I am I came here instead. Of course, Mother was slightly disappointed, but since I made her read Lockhart's book, I think she's begun to see how useful it'll be to have a fully trained wizard in the family. After that, they didn't have much chance to talk. Bit spineless. Yeah, maybe I'll use him. If he doesn't pop up often, maybe I'll use that voice for another character, because I like that voice too. After they didn't have much chance to talk, their earmuffs were back on and they needed to concentrate on the mandrakes. What are they doing with these baby childs? What are they doing again?
They just replanted them.
Why? Why are they burying children?
You have to replant plants, John.
Ah, I kind of love it and I kind of hate it. This is so... Professor Sprout had made it look extremely easy, but it wasn't. The mandrakes didn't like coming out of the earth, but didn't seem to want to go back into it either. They squirmed, kicked, flailed their sharp little fists, and gnashed their teeth. No. Harry spent that 10 whole minutes trying to squash a particularly fat one into a pot. By the end of the class, Harry, like everyone else, was sweaty, aching, and covered in earth. They traipsed back to the castle for a quick wash, and then the Gryffindors hurried off to Transfiguration. Professor McGonagall's classes were always hard work, but today was especially difficult. Parenting is confusing. Just have faith. It'll all work out. That's a good one, Dan. The Mandrake... Oh, wait, okay, sorry. Everything Harry had learned last year seemed to have leaked out of his head during the summer. He was supposed to be turning a beetle into a button, but all he managed to do was give his beetle a lot of exercise as it scuttled over the desktop, avoiding his wand. Ron was having far worse problems. He had patched up his wand with some borrowed spellotape. Spellotape! Oh, JK. Ooh. But it seemed to be damaged beyond repair. It kept crackling and sparking at odd moments. And every time Ron tried to transfigure his beetle, it engulfed him in thick gray smoke which smelled of rotten eggs. Hey, little guy. I'm going to turn him around so you can see his face. There he is. Unable to see what he was doing, Ron accidentally squashed his beetle with his elbow and had to ask for a new one. Professor McGonagall wasn't pleased. Harry was relieved to hear the lunch bell. His brain felt like a wrung sponge. Everyone filed out of the classroom except him and Ron, who was whacking his wand furiously on the desk. Stupid, useless thing! Right home for another one, Harry suggested, as the wand let off a volley of bangs like a firecracker. Oh, yeah, and get another howler back, said Ron, stuffing the now hissing wand into his bag. It's your own fault your wand got snapped. Oh, that's imitating his mom. They went down to lunch, where Ron's mood was not improved by Hermione showing them the handful of perfect coat buttons she had produced in Transfiguration. What have we got this afternoon? Said Harry, hastily changing the subject. Defense against the dark arts, said Hermione at once. Why? Demanded Ron, seizing her timetable. Have you outlined all Lockhart's lesson in little hearts? Hermione snatched the timetable back, flushing furiously. They finished lunch and went outside into the overcast courtyard. Hermione sat down on a stone step and buried her nose in Voyages with Vampires again. Harry and Ron stood talking about Quidditch for several minutes before Harry became aware that he was being very closely watched. Looking up, he saw the very small, mousy-haired boy he'd seen trying on the Sorting Hat last night, staring at Harry as though transfixed. He was clutching what looked like an ordinary Muggle camera. And the moment Harry looked at him, he went bright red. Okay, Colin Creevy, main character? Okay, I'm just going to try something.
All right, Harry, I'm Colin Creevy,
he said breathlessly, taking a tentative step forward.
I'm in Gryffindor too. Do you think, would it be all right if... Can I have a picture?
He said, raising the camera hopefully. A picture? Harry repeated blankly.
So I can prove I met you,
said Colin Creevy eagerly, edging further forwards.
I know all about you. Everyone's told me about how you survived when you-know-who tried to kill you, and how he disappeared, and everything, and how you've still got a lightning scar on your forehead.
His eyes raked Harry's hairline.
And a boy in my dormitory said if I develop the film in the right potion, the pictures will move.
Colin drew a great shuddering breath of excitement and said,
It's brilliant here, isn't it? I never knew all the odd stuff I could do was magic till I got the letter from Hogwarts. My dad's a milkman. He couldn't believe it either. So I'm taking loads of pictures to send home to him. And it'd be really good if I had one of you.
He looked imploringly at Harry.
Maybe your friend could take it and I could stand next to you and then you could sign it.
Signed photos? You're giving out signed photos, Potter. Breathless, excited, really eager.
Like he ate 17 pixie sticks.
Okay,
Super fan.
So Colin Creevy is a bit, more nervous than that, faster. Okay, gotcha. Loud and scathing, Draco Malfoy's voice echoed around the courtyard. He had stopped right behind Colin, flanked, as he always was at Hogwarts, by his large and thuggish cronies, Crabbe and Goyle. I don't care if you hate it, I'm gonna keep doing it. Yeah, deal with it. Deal with it. They are French, and you know it. Everyone queue up, Malfoy roared to the crowd. Harry Potter's giving out signed photos. No, I'm not, said Harry angrily, his fists clenching. Shut up, Malfoy. Colin, okay. You're just jealous, piped up Colin, whose entire body was about as thick as Crabbe's neck. Jealous, said Malfoy, who didn't need to shout anymore. Half the courtyard was listening in. Of what? I don't want a foul scar right across my head, thanks. I don't think getting your head cut open makes you that special myself. Crabbe and Goyle were sniggering stupidly. Eat slugs, Malfoy, said Ron angrily. Crabbe stopped laughing and started rubbing his conker-like knuckles. Conker-like knuckles! The word's back. If you stop, I stop listening. Conker-like knuckles in a menacing way. Be careful, Weasley, sneered Malfoy. You don't want to start any trouble, or your mummy will have to come and take you away from school. He put on a shrill, piercing voice. If you put another toe out of line... A knot of Slytherin 50-years nearby laughed loudly at this. Weasley would like a signed photo, Potter, smirked Malfoy. It'd be worth more than his family's whole house. Ron whipped out his spellotaped wand, but Hermione shut Voyages with Vampires with a snap and whispered, Look out! Gilderoy Lockhart. What's all this? What's all this? Gilderoy Lockhart was striding towards them, his turquoise robe swirling behind him. Who's giving out signed photos? Harry started to speak, but he was cut short as Lockhart flung an arm around his shoulder and thundered jovially, Shouldn't have asked! We meet again, Harry. Pinned to Lockhart's side and burning with humiliation, Harry saw Malfoy slide smirking back into the crowd. Come on then, Mr. Creevy, said Lockhart, beaming at Colin. A double portrait. Can't say fairer than that. And we'll both sign it for you. Conquers this time are chestnuts. Oh, gross. I've got a hair in my mouth. Ugh. Okay. Colin fumbled for his camera and took the pictures as the bell rang behind them, signaling the start of afternoon classes. Off you go. Move along there, Lockhart called to the crowd, and he set off back to the castle with Harry, who was wishing he knew a good vanishing spell, still clasped to his side. A word to the wise, Harry, said Lockhart paternally as they entered the building through a side door. I covered up for you back there with young Creevy. If he was photographing me, too, your schoolfellows won't think you're setting yourself up so much. Deaf to Harry's stammers, Lockhart swept him down a corridor lined with staring students and up a staircase. Let me just say that handing out signed pictures at this stage of your career isn't sensible. Looks a tad big-headed. Harry, to be frank, there may well come a time when, like me, you'll need to keep a stack handy wherever you go. But he gave a little chortle. That's his laugh. A little chortle. I don't think you're quite there yet. They had reached Lockhart's classroom, and he let Harry go at last. Harry yanked his robe straight and headed for a seat at the very back of the classroom, where he busied himself with piling all 7 of Lockhart's books in front of him, so that he could avoid looking at the real thing. The rest of the class came clattering in, and Ron and Hermione sat down on either side of Harry. You could have fried an egg on your face, said Ron. You'd better hope Creevy doesn't meet Ginny. They'll be starting a Harry Potter fan club. Shut up, snapped Harry. The last thing he needed was for Lockhart to hear the phrase Harry Potter fan club. When the whole class was seated, Lockhart cleared his throat loudly and silence fell. He reached forward, picked up Neville Longbottom's copy of Travels with Trolls, and held it up to show his own winking portrait on the front. Me, he said, pointing at it and winking as well. Gilderoy Lockhart, Order of Merlin, 3rd class, honorary member of the Dark Force Defense League, and 5 times winner of Witch's Weekly Most Charming Smile Award. But I don't talk about that. I didn't get rid of the abandoned banshee by smiling at her. He waited for them to laugh. A few people smiled weakly. I see you've all bought a complete set of my books. Well done. I thought we'd start today with a little quiz. Nothing to worry about, just to check how well you've read them, how much you've taken in. When he handed out the test papers, he returned to the front of class and said, You have 30 minutes. Start now. Harry looked down at his paper and read, What is Gilderoy Lockhart's favorite color? No, 1. What is Gilderoy Lockhart's favorite color? 2. What is Gilderoy Lockhart's secret ambition? 3. What, in your opinion, is Gilderoy Lockhart's greatest achievement to date? This is so stupid. It's like an SNL skit in this book. On and on it went, over 3 sides of paper, right down to 54. When is Gilderoy Lockhart's birthday, and what would his ideal gift be? This guy. Half an hour later, Lockhart collected in the papers and rifled through them in front of the class. Tut tut. Hardly any of you remembered that my favorite color is lilac. I say so in Year with a Yeti, and a few of you need to read Weekend with a Werewolf more carefully. I clearly state in Chapter 12 that my ideal birthday gift would be harmony between all magic and non-magic peoples. Though I wouldn't say no to a large bottle of Ogden's Old Fire Whiskey. He gave them another roguish wink. Ron was now staring at Lockhart with an expression of disbelief on his face. Seamus Finnegan and Dean Thomas. Oh God. Okay, we'll get to Dean. Oh, yeah. Who were sitting in front, were shaking with silent laughter. Hermione, on the other hand, was listening to Lockhart with rapt attention and gave a start when he mentioned her name. But Miss Hermione Granger knew my secret ambition is to rid the world of evil and market my own range of hair care portions. Good girl! In fact, he flipped over her paper over, full marks. Where is Miss Hermione Granger? Hermione raised a trembling hand. Excellent, beamed Lockhart. Quite excellent. Take 10 points for Gryffindor. And so, to business. He bent down behind his desk and lifted a large, covered cage on it. That last gonna give you nightmares. Now, be warned. It is my job to arm you against the foulest creatures known to wizard kind. You may find yourselves facing your worst fears in this room. Know only that no harm can befall you whilst I am here. All I ask is that you remain calm. In spite of himself, Harry leaned around his pile of books for a better look at the cage. Lockhart placed a hand on the cover. Dean and Seamus had stopped laughing now. Neville was cowering in his front seat. I must ask you not to scream, said Lockhart in a low voice. It might provoke them. As the whole class held its breath, Lockhart whipped off the cover. Yes, he said dramatically. Freshly caught Cornish pixies! Seamus Finnegan couldn't control himself. He let out a snort of laughter, which even Lockhart couldn't mistake for a scream of terror. Yes? He smiled at Seamus. Well, they're not very dangerous, are they? Seamus choked. They're not very dangerous, are they? Seamus choked. Don't be so sure. Okay, I'm not going to do everything he says like an advertisement. Don't be so sure, said Lockhart, waggling his finger annoyingly at Seamus. Devilish tricky little blighters they can be. The pixies were electric blue and about 8 inches high, with pointed faces and voices so shrill it was like listening to a lot of budgies arguing. The moment the cover had been removed, they had started jabbering and rocketing around, rattling the bars and pulling bizarre faces at the people nearest them. Right then, Lockhart said loudly. Let's see what you make of them. and he opened the cage. It was pandemonium. The pixies. Okay, this is getting... Pixies are little fairies?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The pixies shot in every direction like rockets. 2 of them seized Neville by the ears and lifted him into the air. Several shot straight through the window, showering the back row with broken glass. Poor Neville. The rest proceeded to wreck the classroom more effectively than a rampaging rhino. They grabbed ink bottles and sprayed the class with them, shredded books and papers, tore pictures from the wall, upended the waste bin, grabbed bags and books and threw them out of the smashed window. Within minutes, half the class was sheltering under desks, and Neville was swinging from the candelabra in the ceiling. "Come on now, round them up, they're only pixies," Lockhart shouted. He rolled up his sleeves, brandished his wand, and bellowed, "Pesky pixie, pester know me. Pester know me. Pester know me. It's a new kind of pasta I invented." That's what it sounds like. It had absolutely no effect. One of the pixies seized Lockhart's wand and threw it out of the window too. Lockhart gulped and dived under his own desk, narrowly avoiding being squashed by Neville, who fell a second later as the candelabra gave way. The bell rang, and there was a mad rush toward the exit. In the relative calm that followed, Lockhart straightened up, caught sight of Harry, Ron, and Hermione, who were almost at the door, and said, "Well, I'll ask you 3 to just nip the rest of them back into their cage." He swept past them and shut the door quickly behind him. Man, he's a douche. He's a little douche. "Can you believe him?" roared Ron as one of the remaining pixies bit him painfully on the ear. Who's saying this? "He just wants to give us some hands-on experience," said Hermione, immobilizing 2 pixies at once with a clever freezing charm and stuffing them back into their cage. "Hands-on?" said Harry, who was trying to grab a pixie dancing out of reach with its tongue out. "Hermione, he didn't have a clue what he was doing." "Rubbish," said Hermione. "You've read his books. Look at all these amazing things he's done." "He says he's done," Ron muttered. Mega douche. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. He's very fun to do. Very fun voice. Fun character too. So he's a fake. He's a fake, obviously. He's a braggart. That's what he is. Chapter 7, Mudbloods and Murmurs. Ooh, Mudbloods. What the heck? So I'm guessing that's some kind of muddy monster that oozes blood. Gross. Harry spent a lot of time over the next few days dodging out of sight whenever he saw Gilderoy Lockhart coming down a corridor. Harder to avoid was Colin Creevey, who seemed to have memorized Harry's timetable. Nothing seemed to give Colin a bigger thrill than say, "All right, Harry," 6 or 7 times a day, and hear, "Hello, Colin," back, however exasperated Harry sounded when he said it. Hedwig was still angry with Harry about the disastrous car journey. Ooh, 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 ooh. That's how I'll sound, in case you didn't know. Just watch some documentaries. And was still angry about the disastrous car journey, and Ron's wand was still malfunctioning, surpassing itself on Friday morning by shooting out of Ron's hand in charms and hitting tiny old Professor Flitwick squarely between the eyes, creating a large, throbbing green boil where it had struck. So with one thing and another, Harry was quite glad to reach the weekend. He, Ron, and Hermione were planning to visit Hagrid on Saturday morning. Harry, however, was shaken awake several hours earlier than he would have liked by Oliver Wood. Captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team. What's the matter? What's the matter? What's the matter with you? Yeah. What's the matter? Said Harry groggily. Quidditch practice, said Wood. Come on. Harry squinted at the window. There was a thin mist hanging across the pink and gold sky. Now he was awake. He couldn't understand how he could have slept through the racket of the birds were making. Oliver, Harry croaked. It's the crack of dawn. Exactly, said Wood. He was a tall and burly 6th year, and at the moment his eyes were gleaming with a mad enthusiasm.
It's part of our new training program. Come on, grab your broom and let's go, said Wood heartily. None of the other teams have started training yet. We're going to be first off the mark this year.
Yawning and shivering slightly, Harry climbed out of bed and tried to find his Quidditch robes. Hedwig's female, so your owl voice should be a higher. Okay, thank you for that, Liz. Thank you for that.
Good man, said Wood. Meet you on the pitch in 15 minutes.
When he'd found his scarlet team robes and pulled on his cloak for warmth, Harry scribbled a note to Ron explaining where he'd gone, and went down the spiral staircase to the common room, his Nimbus 2000 on his shoulder. He had just reached the portrait hole when there was a clatter behind him, and Colin Creevey came dashing down the spiral staircase, his camera swinging madly around his neck, and something clutched in his hand.
I heard someone saying your name on the stairs, Harry. Look what I've got here. I've had it developed. I want to show you.
Harry looked bemusedly at the photograph Colin was brandishing under his nose. A moving, black and white Lockhart was tugging hard on an arm recognized as his own. He was pleased to see that his photographic self was putting up a good fight and refusing to be dragged into view. As Harry watched, Lockhart gave up and slumped, panting against the white edge of the picture.
Will you sign it?
Maybe I'll use that nerd voice I had before for that other kid for this one.
Will you sign it?
Said Colin eagerly. No, said Harry flatly, glancing around to check that the room was really deserted. Sorry, Colin, I'm in a hurry. Quidditch practice. He climbed through the portrait hole.
Oh, wow! Wait for me! I've never watched a Quidditch game before.
Colin scrambled through the hole after him. It's really boring, Harry said quickly, but Colin ignored him, his face shining with excitement.
You were the youngest house player in 100 years, weren't you, Harry? Weren't you?
Said Colin, trotting alongside him.
You must be brilliant. I've never flown. Is it easy? Is that your own broom? Is that the best one there is?
Gosh. Harry didn't know how to get rid of him. It was like having an extremely talkative shadow.
I don't really understand Quidditch, said Colin breathlessly. Is it true there are 4 balls and 2 of them fly around trying to knock people off their brooms?
Yes, said Harry heavily, resigned to explain the complicated rules of Quidditch. They're called bludgers. There are 2 beaters on each team who carry clubs to beat the bludgers away from their side. Fred and George Weasley are the Gryffindor beaters.
And what are the other balls for?
Colin asked, tripping down a couple of steps because he was gazing open-mouthed at Harry. Well, the quaffle, that's the biggest red one, is the one that scores goals. 3 chasers on each team throw the quaffle to each other and try to get it through the goalposts at the end of the pitch. They're 3 long poles with hoops on the end.
And the 4th ball?
Is the golden snitch, said Harry, and it's very small, very fast and difficult to catch. But that's what the Seeker's got to do, because a game of Quidditch doesn't end until the snitch has been caught, and whichever team's Seeker gets the snitch earns his team an extra 150 points.
And you're Gryffindor Seeker, aren't you? Said Colin in awe.
Yes, said Harry, as they left the castle and started across the dew-drenched grass. And there's the keeper too. He guards the goalposts, but that's it really. But Colin didn't stop questioning Harry all the way down the sloping lawns to the Quidditch pitch, and Harry only shook him off when he reached the changing rooms. Colin called after him in a piping voice,
I'll go and get a good seat, Harry,
and hurried off to the stands. The rest of the Gryffindor team were already in the changing room. Wood was the only person who looked truly awake. Fred and George Weasley were sitting puffy-eyed and tussle-haired next to 4th year Alicia Spinnet. She main character? Does she come up often? Alicia? Give me some adjectives if yes. I'll probably get to her in a little bit. Who seemed to be nodding up against the wall behind her. Her fellow chasers, Katie Bell and Angelina Johnson, were yawning side by side opposite them. Okay, so you know better than me. Give me adjectives if I need them.
There you are, Harry. What kept you? Said Wood briskly. No, I wanted a quick talk with you all before we actually get onto a pitch, because I spent the summer devising a whole new training program, which I really think will make all the difference. Wood was holding up a large diagram of a Quidditch pitch, on which were drawn many lines, arrows, and crosses in different colored inks. He took out his wand, tapped the board, and the arrows began to wiggle over the diagram like caterpillars. That's useful. As Wood launched into a speech about his new tactics, Fred Weasley's head drooped right onto Alicia Spinnet's shoulder, and he began to snore.
little bit of... That's how I blow a nose. Okay, she's around but not a main. Fierce, pretty tomboy, but she doesn't talk much. Okay, Katie Bell, yes. Okay, give me some adjectives for Katie Bell then. The first board took nearly 20 minutes to explain. But there was another board under that, and a third under that one. Harry sank into a stupor as Wood droned on and on. So, said Wood, at long last, jerking Harry from a wistful fantasy about what he could be eating for breakfast at this very moment up at the castle. Is that clear? Any questions? I've got a question, Oliver, said George, who had woken with a start. Why couldn't you have told us all this yesterday when we were awake? Wood wasn't pleased. Now listen here, you lot, he said, glowering at them all. We should have won the Quidditch Cup last year. We're easily the best team. But unfortunately, owing to circumstances beyond our control. Harry shifted guiltily in his own seat. He had been unconscious in the hospital wing for the final match of the previous year, meaning that Gryffindor had been a player short and had suffered their worst defeat in 300 years. Wood took a moment to regain control of himself. Their last defeat was clearly still torturing him. So this year, we trained harder. We train harder than ever before. Okay, let's go and put our new theories into practice. Okay, let's go and put our new theories into practice, Wood shouted, seizing his broomstick and leading the way out of the changing rooms. Stiff-legged and still yawning, his team followed. They'd been in the changing room so long that the sun was up properly now, although remnants of mist hung over the grass in the stadium. As Harry walked onto the pitch, he saw Ron and Hermione sitting in the stands. Aren't you finished yet? Called Ron incredulously. Haven't even started, said Harry, looking jealously at the toast and marmalade Ron and Hermione had brought out of the great hall. Wood's been teaching us new moves. He mounted his broomstick and kicked at the ground, soaring up into the air. Katie is English. Thank you. The cool morning air whipped his face, waking him far more effectively than Wood's long talk. It felt wonderful to be back on the Quidditch pitch. He soared right around the stadium at full speed, racing Fred and George. What's that funny clicking noise? Called Fred as they hurtled around the corner. Harry looked into the stands. Colin was sitting in one of the highest seats, his camera raised, taking picture after picture, the sounds strangely magnified in the deserted stadium. Look this way, Harry! This way! He cried shrilly. Who's that? Said Fred. No idea, Harry lied, putting on a spurt of speed that took him as far away as possible from Colin. What's going on? Said Wood, frowning, as he skimmed through the air towards them. Why is that first year taking pictures? I don't like it. He could be a Slytherin spy, trying to find out about our new training program. He's in Gryffindor, said Harry quickly. And the Slytherins don't need a spy, Oliver, said George. What makes you say that? Said Wood testily. Because they're here in person. Oh, gosh. Because they're here in person. I'm mixing them together, said George, pointing. Several people in green robes were walking onto the pitch, broomsticks in their hands. I don't believe it, Wood hissed in outrage. I booked the pitch for today. We'll see about this. Wood shot toward the ground, landing rather harder than he meant to in his anger. Staggering slightly as he dismounted, Harry, Fred, and George followed. Flint! Wood bellowed at the Slytherin captain. Give me some adjectives for Flint. He's going to pop up. This is our practice time. We got up specially. You can clear off now. Marcus Flint was even larger than Wood. He had a look of trollish cunning on his face as he replied. Anything for Flint? So he seems like a troll. Cunning. Plenty of room for...
Somebody said a-hole.
Cool. Mean, arrogant, stupid. Nasty, mean. Yeah, bro. Okay. Plenty of room for all of us, Wood. Plenty of room for all of us, Wood. No. Plenty of room for all of us, Wood. Angelina, Alicia, and Katie had come over too. There were no girls on the Slytherin team, who stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the Gryffindors, leering to a man. But I booked the pitch, said Wood, positively spitting with rage. I booked it! Said Flint, but I've got a specially signed note here from Professor Snape.
I, Professor S. Snape, give the Slytherin team permission to practice today on the Quidditch pitch owing to the need to train the new Seeker.
You've got a new Seeker, said Wood, distracted. Where? Oh, an Irish accent. He says sneer, deep voice, strong Dublin. Okay. And from behind the 6 large figures before them came a 7th, smaller boy, smirking all over his pale, pointed face. It was Draco Malfoy. Smoke billowed behind him. He emerged from the depths of hell. Tilly, okay. Fred. Aren't you Lucius Malfoy's son? Said Fred, looking at Malfoy with dislike. Irish. Dublin. Funny you should mention Draco's father. No, funny you should mention Draco's father, said Flint, as the whole Slytherin's team smiled still more broadly. Let me show you the generous gift he's made to the Slytherin team. All 7 of them held out their broomsticks. 7 highly polished brand new handles and 7 sets of fine gold lettering spelled the words Nimbus 2001 gleamed under the Gryffindors' noses in the clear morning sun. Very latest model. Only came out last month, said Flint carelessly, flicking a speck of dust from the end of his own. I believe outstrips the old 2000 series by considerable... I'm trying to do like 3 things with that voice at the same time. Like bro, deep voice, and Irish accent. Okay, Irish accent. I did Irish accent for a full play and I can't get it in right now. I believe outstrips the old 2000 series by a considerable amount. As for the old clean sweeps, he smiled nastily at Fred and George, who were clutching clean sweeps 5s. Sleeps the board with them. None of the Gryffindor team could think of anything to say for a moment. Malfoy was smirking so broadly his cold eyes were reduced to slits. Oh, look, said Flint. A pitch invasion. Ron and Hermione were crossing the grass to see what was going on. What's happening? Ron asked Harry. Why aren't you playing? What's he doing here? And what's he doing here? Oh, this is like so many different ones. He was looking at Malfoy, taking in his Slytherin Quidditch robes. I'm the new Slytherin Seeker, Weasley, said Malfoy smugly. Everyone's just been admiring the brooms my father's bought our team. Ron gaped, open-mouthed, at the 7 superb broomsticks in front of them. Good, aren't they? Said Malfoy smoothly. But perhaps the Gryffindor team will be able to raise some gold and get new brooms too. You could raffle up those clean sweep 5s. I expect a museum would bid for them. The Slytherin team howled with laughter. At least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in, said Hermione sharply. They got it on pure talent. The smug look on Malfoy's face flickered. No one asked your opinion, you filthy little mudblood, he spat. Harry knew at once that Malfoy had said something really bad, because there was an instant uproar at his words. Flint had to dive in front of Malfoy to stop Fred and George jumping on him. Alicia shrieked, How dare you! No, I don't know, who cares right now. And Ron plunged his hand into his robes, pulling out his wand and yelling, You'll pay for that one, Malfoy! And pointed it furiously under Flint's arm at Malfoy's face. A loud bang echoed around the stadium, and a jet of green light shot out of the wrong end of Ron's wand, hitting him in the stomach and sending him reeling backwards onto the grass. Ron, are you all right? Squealed Hermione. Ron opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, he gave an almighty belch, and several slugs dribbled out of his mouth onto his lap. That's embarrassing. The Slytherin team were paralyzed with laughter. Flint was doubled up, hanging on to his new broomstick for support. Malfoy was on all fours, banging the ground with his fist. The Gryffindors were gathered around Ron, who kept belching large, glistening slugs. Nobody seemed to want to touch him. We better get him to Hagrid's. It's nearest, said Harry to Hermione, who nodded bravely, and the pair of them pulled Ron up by the arms. What happened, Harry? What happened? Is he ill?
But you can cure him, can't you?
Colin had run down from his seat and was now dancing alongside them as they left the pitch. Ron gave a huge heave, and more slugs dribbled down his front.
Oh,
Said Colin, fascinated, and raised his camera.
can you hold him still, Harry?
Get out of the way, Colin, said Harry angrily. He and Hermione supported Ron out of the stadium and crossed the ground towards the edge of the forest.
Nearly there, Ron,
Said Hermione as the gamekeeper's cabin came into view.
You'll be all right in a minute. Almost there.
They were within 20 feet of Hagrid's house when the front door opened, but it wasn't Hagrid who emerged. Gilderoy Lockhart, wearing robes of palest mauve today, came striding out. That's where we'll end. Time for some interaction, Q&A, and all that jazz. Okay, Lockhart is super fun to do. Love him. Whenever there's like 5 characters speaking at the same time, it gets hard. And especially when new characters are introduced, things get mixed up in my mouth. But it's actually great practice. I'm enjoying trying to do it. I enjoy the difficulty. And I enjoy the failure, because that's how I get better, you know. You gotta fall to pick yourself up. You've got to fail to succeed.
Process, John.
Yeah. I'll talk about my process if I want to. He's a twit. So much fun. Love your Lockhart. Thank you, Rachel. He might be. You know, the Scottish accent is actually the one that I find, funnily enough, kind of difficult. I'm like, am I doing this right in the middle of doing it? I think I have to exaggerate more. That's when I feel like I'm doing it. But whenever I pull back from it. Your Colin's perfect. I'm dying of the facial expressions. Thank you, Anita. Do you have a wand? No, I don't. Hey, Rick. Wow. I hope you're doing well. Inspirational. Thank you. Do you have fans like Colin? Yeah, Jordan Clausen's a big fan of mine.
Yeah, just like sniveling.
Yeah, Jordan Clausen, he's always like, can we hang out or something like that? You know, it's pretty, sometimes it's annoying. How much time per day are you spending playing video games? I'd say around at least an hour, probably. What's your favorite color and greatest accomplishment? Nice callback. My favorite color is blue. Greatest accomplishment, I would say one of them is Jordan Clausen's music video. Go to my profile, take a look at it. Actually, no, just go into YouTube, type in Jordan Clausen Identification. I really am proud of that. Love the double lightning bolts. Thanks, Tim. Like my name. Oh, Cornish Pixie! Your Lockhart double and Hagrid filter, amazing. Thank you. Should make a wand in your free time. I don't think I will. Sorry.
Whittle it.
Thanks for the suggestion, though. Goes with the book. I second Caitlin's questions. I answered them. How old are you? I'm 24. But really, I'm 33. Haha, so funny. Our boy Thomas wants to lend you his wand. Sure, I'll take it. Oh gosh, Jordan, you are the worst. When's your B-Day? July 12th. That's when my B-Day is. Hey, Elise. I haven't seen you since Trinity, I think. What are your favorite drugs? Oh, some really hard crack cocaine, and then just put some E on top of it. No,
Sure.
don't do drugs, obviously. Into what, Jordan? The double lightning bolt like the Avatar arrow. Okay, time is winding up. A minute 24 left. So after this, please applaud your healthcare workers. Follow Mark at yoc.creations. He does some really cool artistic things. Very creative. He even did a year of doing something artistically different every month. So 1 month focusing on writing, I think, right? 1 month of focusing on painting, 1 month on physical things, building physical things. He's got a lot of cool creative things on there, so go follow him. What else? I think that's it. I don't want to say anything else other than I was very tired today, and I was like, oh, how's this gonna go? But I did great. I hope you all have a good day. I hope you feel motivated, happy, and if not, that's okay. Just get through this. I don't know how long it's gonna go. It might go for months, might only go for a couple of weeks, but I'm enjoying this time with you. Have a good day. Bye.